Welcome to my Naxxramas boss guide for Season of Discovery. Let's first talk about the new raid difficulty with the Empower system. At the beginning of the raid, you will have the option to activate 4 different orbs. For each orb that is activated, all of the bosses in the trash will have increased health and deal increased damage. Just like past difficulties, the more orbs that are activated, the more bonus loot you will receive. The orbs will glow a specific color when active. To lock in your difficulty, speak with the NPC in the center to spawn a burning conduit. Interact with the conduit and you will receive a debuff and the orbs will become shackled, confirming the difficulty is now locked in. You can of course at any time disable the orbs if you choose to do so. This debuff also reduces your chance to dodge as well as increasing your hit rating. These values will change depending on how many orbs you have activated. Alongside this, the orbs you have activated will empower a specific wing with a new mechanic. These empowered mechanics can only occur within that specific wing and not inside of the others. For the Arachnid wing, we will have eggs that will explode and they will knock players nearby. For the Plague wing, we will have mushrooms that spawn and will provide a stacking haste buff and increase nature damage taken. So you'll want to stack on top of these whenever they spawn, but don't stand too close as they will knock you back. And be careful as once they grow to their full size, they will explode. For the military wing, we will get a raid warning message telling you to do a certain emote. Doing the correct emote will give you a damage and healing buff, and doing the wrong emote will fear you. For the construct wing, we will get an overcharge debuff on random players. When you get this debuff, you will do AoE damage to those around you, but you will also have an increased attack speed as well as casting speed. Anub'Rekhan. Stack the 2 adds and face them away from the raid as they do a cleave. Focus the adds first as they have a stacking poison debuff. They will also root your melee, so pop a free action potion on the run in. Once the adds die, they will spawn corpse scarabs, so AoE these down. If anyone else dies during the fight, they will also spawn corpse scarabs. Anub'Rekhan will also cast Impale throughout the fight. Try and spread out to help reduce this damage. This ability will knock you in the air and you will also take some fall damage. If a noob is to cast Locust Swarm, you will want to max range this while your tank kites them around the room. You could use a Swiftest Pot or have a hunter use Aspect of the Pack to help you with this. Faerlina. Focus the followers first as they silence and will charge random raid members. Keep the worshippers alive for when Faerlina enrages. You'll get a priest to mind control them and use the ability Widow's Embrace. The enrage will happen every 60 seconds. Throughout the fight, Faerlina will cast Poison Bolt Volley, you can dispel this, and then lastly, move out of the Rain of Fire. Maexxna. Face her away from the raid to avoid the poison shock as it is a frontal. Range DPS, break the players out of the web wraps, and AoE any spiderlings as they spawn. Every 40 seconds, the whole raid will get stunned by web spray. Rogues can time a vanish, but it's a bit tricky to pull off. The only other way to get out of this ability is to pre-pop a Flask of Petrification. Before this goes off, try to pre-hot the tank or pop a defensive cooldown. During this, I recommend a druid rolling Abolish Poison on the tank to remove the healing debuff, Necrotic Poison. Maexxna will enrage at 30%, so if a web spray is about to go out and you're going to push her into that 30% mark, try to hold DPS until the web spray is over with, and then burn the boss. Noth the Plaguebringer. Whenever Curse of the Plaguebringer goes out, be sure to decurse this as soon as possible. Whenever Noth blinks, be sure to watch your threat as this is a threat drop. On top of that, when the blink goes out, Noth will cast a cripple, hitting any nearby players. Be sure to dispel this accordingly, with your tank being first. Throughout the fight, Noth will spawn adds, the warriors will cleave, so face them away from the raid, the guardians will cast Arcane Explosion, so stun or focus these down, and then the champions will cast a Mortal Strike and a Shadow Shock ability. Heigan. Melee will follow the boss around, and casters will take the platform that Heigan starts at. Keep the boss away from the platform so no one is getting hit with the Mana Burn or Decrepit Fever. The debuff Decrepit Fever needs to be cleansed immediately by any healers on the platform. When teleport goes out, you will need to fight your way back to the boss room through a gauntlet. Hug the right wall, kick the Mind Flay that the Eye Stalks will cast, and fight your way back into the room. Now let me explain what the eruption pattern is going to look like, which is the main ability for this fight. You will start in position 1, wait for eruption to go out, and then move to number 2. After that, go to 3, then to 4, then back to 3, back to 2, and then back to 1. You'll continue doing this rotation, of course waiting for eruption to go out before moving to the next quadrant. After 90 seconds, Heigan will teleport to his platform and begin phase 2. At this point, this is the true dance as it's going to be a little bit faster and everyone from the raid has to do it, as you'll just die if you stay on the platform next to Heigan. It'll be the exact same rotation as before, going from 1, 2, 3, 4 back to 3, 2, 1. The only thing that's tricky is whenever the dance is over you will typically end up in position 3 and you'll have to go all the way to position 1. That is the only thing that's a little bit tricky, and it's indicated by Heigan running off of the stage, running back to the main tank. Loatheb. For this fight, you'll have to play around the ability Necrotic Aura. This will prevent all healing effects for 17 seconds. To play around this, you can use any kind of shielded ability like Power Word Shield, and this will be applied to the tank while this goes out. Loatheb will have a Poison Aura, so drop Poison Cleansing Totem or cast Judgment of Light to help deal with this. Every 30 seconds, Loatheb will remove all curses from them, so be sure to reapply your curses. At the 2-minute mark, Loatheb will cast Inevitable Doom. Following this, every 30 seconds, a new Inevitable Doom will be casted. This will deal anywhere from 3 to 5,000 shadow damage. This is ultimately a big DPS race, so you'll need to set up a spore rotation to optimize your DPS. You'll make groups of 5 to pick up the buff one at a time. The spores will spawn in the corners of the room. Just make sure that you're close to the spore when it dies, as you need to be very close to receive the buff. Patchwerk. For this fight, you're going to want to have one off tank, maybe even a second to help soak Hatefuls as kind of a safety net. The main mechanic you're playing around here is going to be Hateful Strike. This ability is super straightforward, but does a ton of damage. Hateful Strike will only target players within melee range, players that have the most amount of health, and players that are second on threat. So for example, if you're third on threat and you have more health than the player that's second on threat, you are now going to be eating Hatefuls instead of them. So to prevent this as a melee DPS, you're going to dip into the slime right behind Patchwerk to reduce your health. Lastly, Patchwerk will enrage at 5% health, so save some CDs for that last push. Grobbulus. They will drop poison clouds below their feet every so often. These will expand over time, so continue moving the boss. If you get Mutating Injection, run out in a suitable location, as when this expires or is dispelled, you will drop a poison cloud, which will also expand over time. Lastly, Grobbulus will cast Slime Spray. This ability is a frontal and will spawn a slime for every target that is hit, so ideally, it's just your tank. Gluth. For this fight, you're going to want to tank the boss all the way by the door. Frenzy goes off every 10 seconds or so make sure that your hunters are trank shotting this. They have a stacking mortal wound debuff which will reduce incoming heals, so look for a taunt swap at around 4 or 5 stacks. They do a fear every 20 seconds, which is a 20-yard fear, so casters should be able to outrange this. While this is going on, you'll need to have someone kite the zombie chows around the room, and get your hunters to drop some frost traps to make this a lot easier. Don't worry about focusing down the zombie chows, as they have way too much health to deal with. Instead, you're going to wait until Decimate goes out to deal with them. When Decimate goes out, all players, including the zombie chows, will drop to 5% health. This is a good time to pop a defensive cooldown if you're a tank, and all DPS should switch to killing the zombie chows, as if they ever reach Gluth, they will heal him. Thaddius. Split your raid into 2 groups, putting a tank and healer on both sides. Try and put your caster DPS on Stalag, as Fugan has an AoE mana burn. This is a 30-yard spell, so you can max range this if you are on that side. Every 20 seconds, Magnetic Pull will go off, throwing the tanks on the opposite side, swapping positions. They both have a War Stomp, which is a light knockback, so try not to stand too close to the edge. And then most importantly, do not pull them too far from the Tesla coil above them, as if you do, this will do an insane amount of nature damage to the entire raid. Kill them at the same time, and then jump over to Thaddius' platform. For Thaddius, they will cast a Chain Lightning, so just keep the raid topped at all times. But the main ability here is going to be Polarity Shift. You will be assigned a positive or negative charge, and you will need to stack with that polarity. Most groups will follow positive on the right side and negative on the left. An easy way to remember this is going to be Positive Portal, as there is a portal on the right side. Pay attention to your polarity, as this will change throughout the fight, and if you're ever caught on the wrong side, you will likely get one-shot. Once the fight is over with, your debuff will be removed, so you don't have to worry about spreading out anymore. Instructor Razuvious. You will need 2 priests to mind control the understudies for this fight. You'll start the fight off in this location here. Positioning is very important here, so I will leave a video showing the priest's perspective for this fight. Cast Mind Soothe on the understudy you'll be controlling, and then cast Mind Control. Once you have control of the understudy, taunt Razuvious and then pull them into this cubby. Your positioning will look like this, to where the understudy is in range of the healers at all times, meanwhile keeping Razuvious line of sight of the healers as well as the mind controlling priests. The strategy going forward from here is going to be rotating your mind controls and keeping this exact positioning. When your mind control is about to be finished, have the second priest mind control and add a bit early to taunt off of you. I'll leave a link to my Discord for a 1-button macro to make this fight much easier. Throughout the fight, Razuvious will cast Disrupting Shout. Any of my mana users will need to line of sight this ability. For my tanks, you'll continue tanking the understudies in a safe location for when they're not being mind controlled. Gothik the Harvester. Split your raid into 2 groups, having a tank and healer on both sides. Range will go to the live side and melee will go to the undead side. The priority list on the live side will be to kill the riders, then the death knights, and then the trainees. The undead priority will be to kill the trainees, then the riders, then the death knights, and then the horses. Once you get to the final trash wave, Gothik will come down to fight shortly after. Gothik will cast a Shadow Bolt that does basically nothing, but will start to ramp up over time as they begin casting Harvest Soul. This will cast every 15 seconds and acts as a DPS race against the boss. Gothik will teleport back and forth from the live side to the undead side, and finally at 30%, the gate will open back up, reigniting you back with your raid group. Four Horsemen. First, let me go over each of the Horsemen's abilities. Thane will have a meteor you'll need to stack in order to split the damage. Mograine will cast Righteous Fire. This is a chance on hit ability, which will make their auto attacks deal significant fire damage. Zeliek will have a Holy Wrath ability. Similar to Cthulhu's Beam, it'll double the damage for each jump that occurs, so melee will stay away from Zeliek. And then lastly, Blaumo will drop Void Zones, so move out of the hockey pucks on the ground. For this fight, you'll want to have 2 to 3 tanks and 3 to 4 healers. The strategy is a bit different now, with Blaumo and Zeliek running to their respective corners without a tank. You still need someone to soak the marks, as if no one is soaking a particular mark, it will be a raid wipe. The ideal candidate is to have 2 Shadow Priests in the back, since they can heal themselves with Vampiric Embrace and Devouring Plague. You just need a 3rd person back here to eat the mark for whenever they swap. You could do this with any other combination, maybe just 2 caster DPS and a healer, and then just rotate between the 2. At around 3 or 4 marks, you're always going to want to swap Horsemen. For the front of the room, have your raid burn Thane and stack up to split the meteor damage. Have a dedicated healer for the tank on Mograine. Once Thane is down, have your raid move over to Mograine and have the previous tank and healer relieve the players in the back. Marks are very short in this version of the fight, so a general rule of thumb is if you have 3 or 4 marks, just go to another Horseman, and if you ever have too many marks, you can always go to the safe zone, which will now be in the center of the room. Once Mograine is down, caster DPS will head to Zeliek, and melee DPS will head to Blaumo. For melee DPS, you're just going to play it safe, get 3 marks, and then go to the safe zone to drop your stacks. As I'm editing this video, Sapph and KT have yet to be cleared on the hardest difficulty. With that being said, I can't include those fights until I have more information on how they will be further augmented. Once I have clarity on how these encounters will work, I'll be making a clear and concise boss guide covering both of them. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss when I post that video. Once the video goes live, it will be in the description of this video as well as on the end screen. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.